iPhones existed thousands of years ago. No, not this iPhone. Matter of fact, not even this model. I'm talking about this type of technology. We've been taught a very specific story about human progress in schools. Cavemen, the agriculture, the Bronze Age, the Iron, the Dark Age, the Renaissance, then the Industrial Revolution, and now us, modern day society with skyscrapers, cars, helicopters, and the most advanced humans to ever exist on this planet. Take a look at Egyptian hieroglyphics, the technology, the entire architecture of the pyramids, with the stones in ancient Sumeria. We have cutting tools in this day and age that have difficulty reaching this precision. Stones cut so perfectly that you could slide a piece of paper between them. And we're supposed to believe that these people did it with less technology that you'd find in a basic hardware store. I believe in something called caged off society theory, where we are given enough information to work, but not enough to get to the top. We are giving exactly enough information to be productive workers, enough education to perform the jobs, enough knowledge to consume and pay taxes, but we are systematically declined any information that would show us how reality works or challenge those who sit at the top. And this is common in human nature. From personal experience, I realized whenever I was in business and someone found out how to make money, they would always hide it with their dear life. And the reason they did this is because they didn't want any competition. A darker reason could be they don't want to see others win. They hate seeing others get successful on the same thing as them because of fear of looking less than, which is where all greed comes from, fear of losing. Think about what you learned in school. Possibly not much you could use to get out of everyday situations. I believe that's on purpose. Look at the statues they had back then versus the statues that they had today. Statues that most of our even greatest sculptors could not remake with today's education. Which, if this is really the case and we're caged off, we need to come up with our own education and figure out how these things go. Think about how technology gets released to the public in drips, in upgrades, in new models. Every year slightly better than last year. Always improvement, but never a full-on revolution. Always enough to keep you buying, but never enough to make you independent. Think about how Nikola Tesla had all of these documents where even those like John Trump, who's related to Donald Trump, had but were never released to the public. While Tesla was working on wireless energy transmission, his investors cut funding when they realized they couldn't make any money off of this. The technology is now nowhere to be found, which I assumed it was buried. And from the situation with John Trump, we know that the feds had access to all of his tech. And if most haven't come out today, I assume more is being hidden. Go look at the statue of David by Michelangelo. Took him 2 years to complete. Celebrated as one of the greatest achievements in human artistic history. Yet no one else can pass it up today, even though we've progressed from the past, which again, doesn't make any sense to me. Now look at ancient Egypt statues. Statues carved from a single block of granite, the hardest stones on earth. Statues so fine in detail that you could see strands of an individual's hair. Statues that have survived thousands of years in perfect condition. Modern sculptors could barely replicate this work right here, and yet we are so advanced. Not only because they lack talent, but they lack the technique. The knowledge of how to do these things has been lost and hidden. Why would we not be able to do these things now if they were able to do these things back in the day? It just doesn't make any sense to me. And it's not just Egypt. Go ahead and look at the ancient statues in India, the structures of South America, the precision stonework in Pumapunka, blocks with such accuracy, they look like Lego pieces. They don't even look realistic. It's like they were made with the hands of a diamond. Now, one case is the Baghdad battery discovered in Iraq. These clay jars with copper and iron rods would have functioned as primitive batteries if ancient people understood electricity. And that's a big if. Humans often come up with the same conclusion when creating things. So if they created similar structures as we do now, and we're not using their exact layouts, we've had civilizations who didn't find out about this, then that means that they must have found a similar solution because, like I said, humans think similar to each other. Great minds think alike even though they don't know each other. That's why we speak the same languages. That's why we find the same things funny. Many sites like Stonehenge or the Hypogum in Malta have acoustic properties that modern architectures struggle to explain today? What if sound was used to move stone, heal, or communicate over long distances? This is a big what if, but what I don't understand is why none of this is being introduced in the history books. It's like we're only given part of what happened, the part that they want us to see. Archaeologists have found crystal lens in Assyria and Egypt. What if ancient civilizations had telescopes or microscopes, allowing them to see the stars long before Galileo? This could explain advanced astronomical knowledge that was encoded in the mountains. We have the Peri-Res map and other ancient maps that show knowledge of coastlines and continents supposedly unknown to their creators. There were ancient skulls with evidence of brain surgery. So now I have a question. Why would they keep all this hidden? Because no one benefits enough from them being open to the public. That's why. They controlled who learned what. They wrapped technical information in religious mystery. They created barriers to enter, oaths, years of training between the public and the truth. And they presented it as protection. They presented it as wisdom. Don't just share with anyone. Only the worthy should wield such power, but then who really decides who's worthy of this type of power or not? But here's the problem. When you conquer knowledge in small groups of people because you're afraid of others growing faster than you and someone overtaking, one plague, one war, one invasion, and it's all gone. And this is how a lot of the structures that we see in the past were built off. Just a small group of people knowing everything. They failed to train enough successors, so when something happened, it just vanished. You need to start asking yourself, what really happened to the Library of Alexander? Why did it happen, and who benefited off of it happening? When civilizations are conquered, their knowledge is taken in by the winners and gatekept. Romans took Greek learning. Arabs preserved and expanded classical philosophy. The knowledge only survived because the conquerors valued it, but it's often destroyed systematically to keep from the public. The only way that you have that much power over others is if they don't have power themselves. That's how some of these rulers think it should be played to stay at the top, keeping everyone below you. And this is the same pattern everywhere. You have to ask yourself, why did they burn the libraries, not the weapons, if the weapons were far more dangerous? There is more power in words than a sword. That's why sword has word in it. Conquerors burned libraries. They killed scholars. They suppressed languages. They replaced foreign knowledge with their own. Conquering allows them to retain power. How much was lost when Rome fell? When the Mongols sacked Baghdad? When colonizers swept across Africa? The Americas, Australia, the Pacific? We will never know because the absence doesn't announce itself. Whenever someone is telling you a half-truth, it's not that they're lying, but they're just keeping information out of the mix so you don't put the pieces of the puzzle together. And this does more damage by lying because you can't say that person lied to you. That person told you what it was, and they can always play the benefit of the doubt that they just didn't know. And one of the last reasons I would add is carrying knowledge has a cost. Maintaining knowledge requires infrastructure. Schools, libraries, teachers, scribes, buildings to house them. And whenever economies go on a downfall, the thing that always gets cut first is funding for research. As we saw last year, at the beginning of the year, we had scientists fired because there wasn't enough funding for them. Even though all societies are built off of the backbone of learning, for some reason this is a common pattern, which it doesn't really seem like it's done for a benefit. It seems like it's more done to protect certain things from being known. Not trying to say that's what's happening, but that just doesn't make any sense. I find it sketchy when someone blocks off people from knowing things. And once a generation grows up without knowing something, their children will never know it exists, and they don't find it important, and it's understandable. I remember growing up, my family members tried to teach me French, and I never wanted to learn French because I just didn't care, right? I already knew English. I thought that was good enough. Until I started getting older and understanding that this knowledge needs to be known, and it's a necessity because you can recognize what things are. They always use this example as, what if we get caught in a situation where we need to speak another foreign language with each other? And when you're a child, you just don't take that seriously. And when you're an adult, you just don't have the time to learn because you're working all day. And so once a generation grows up without knowledge, most likely their children are not going to go out scouting for it. And so why are these people doing this? right? What's the deeper reasoning? Because we obviously know that they don't want people getting ahead. We obviously know that they're trying to stay at the top. But if they really wanted to grow, why exactly do we consistently keep on reinventing the wheels, not building off of what was already done? And aside from keeping people low, restarting is more profitable. Think about it from the perspective of power. If knowledge is more obtainable, the gap between the top and the bottom start colliding until there is no more. And to a point, I get that. A society could not fully run if everyone knew the exact same thing. People have different goals. Some people want to own skyscrapers. Others want to own oil plants. Not everyone can know everything, because in order to get others in line to actually build something, you need some individuals lower than others. That is how it has always worked. And so it's like oil refineries. When oil refineries sell, what do they find threatening? Someone who could reproduce oil at a faster and inexpensive rate. When the Roman concrete formula disappeared, who benefited? Those who sold inferior concrete for less. And we see time and time again, this is constantly protected. I remember a few years back, there was an influencer who started talking about these things on a podcast, naming specific names, and that is when they got in trouble right after. Because this is the backbone of the economy. Just like the guy building the water-powered car on TikTok, we have tons of individuals making inventions and doing things that are unrealistic to most because it was never unrealistic. They always just suppressed it enough to where that only a few hands have it, and now everyone is upgrading because of AI and their understanding of how things actually work. What do we have coming around the corner? World War III. These are the patterns that people need to start recognizing. And it's okay to feel unsafe during these times, feeling like you know too much, feeling like there's always something coming behind your back, because this is how society works. This is war. If you pose a threat to someone who has enough money, expect them to do something that's within their power to keep their power safe. This society is built off of taking advantage of weakness. And as soon as you are someone who can solve these weaknesses, you become a threat, which is why we've never received the cure to cancer, even though they said they spent billions of dollars developing. Matter of fact, I'd say it could even be trillions of dollars. Where's all this money going? Where is all of this money going? Come on, let's be real. So they keep you at a limit. You don't need to know how your phone works. You just need to buy a new one every year or so. You don't need to know how to grow food. You just need money to buy it. You don't need to know how to build a shelter. You just need a mortgage. You don't need to know how your government works. You just need to vote when you're told. You don't need to know how your money works. You just need to hire a financier. And those who think AI is fully helping them, it's just a distraction. All of the resources that we're provided with creates dependency, not innovation. At every level of your life, there's always a system that runs it for you. You can't participate in the world without understanding them. They want you to put power outside of yourself. And because you don't understand them, you can't change them, you can't build alternatives, and if you try to leave, you'll be left with nothing because you have no knowledge of it. This is the cage. It's not built from iron bars, it's built from ignorance. The deliberate cultivation of dependency. Your great-grandparents knew how to grow food, knew how to preserve it, knew how to build infrastructure, make clothing, treat common illness. So I get whenever someone says, I don't like going to the healthcare industry for my issue, or unless it's something they need surgery for. I get why someone says, I like planting my own food, unless they need to buy something where they don't have enough food right away and they need Thanksgiving dinner set up. I get using these outside sources. But at some point, you need to learn how to be self-sufficient. What could you do without the grid? Why do you think so many people have been posting, learn how to plant food, buy old history books, learn how to read in other languages? They're preparing you for the next phase of society, because if you don't do these things, you're going to be set back just like everybody else. If the banks were to collapse right now and you were to have no money the next day, do you know who would be worth more than you? The people who own farms. The people who don't know as much as you when it comes to navigating the world or making money, but they know how to plant seeds. They prepared a garden. They got their own home owned. They don't got a high-rise apartment that costs $10,000 a month. These are the people you need to be looking at. The way we go about things in today's society is not by accident, it's by design. A population that cannot survive without the system will never challenge the system. We've had all of these things out. We've just been kept hidden from them. Anyways, if you guys did enjoy the video, drop a like and comment down below, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Deuces.